Los micrófonos. Hare Krishna, queridos dear devotees. This morning we have a class which I had prepared for a long time and which is a special offering to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. About the intrinsic potential which we obtain from many of the techniques of the Oida Therapy. I've been meditating a lot about the condition of the atheists, also known as Pashandis, those who don't believe in anything, who think that life is really kind of an accident and there's nothing higher to aspire for. Now, this type of thinking is very widespread nowadays, and it is also quite aggressive. This thinking is manifested in such a way that they want to look upon those who have faith in transcendence like stupid, sentimental, like people superstitious who believe in some thing which they cannot see, etc., etc. So it is a condition in this life. It is a condition in this life which is the basis of materialism. It's a basis of intoxication. It is the basis of depression. It is the basis of corruption, ruthlessness. So, in my meditation, I have accumulated some thoughts as we are working with Oida Therapy, which means that there are things which we do not know, which we cannot see with our blunt senses, but which influence us and which are of prime importance. And they give the rise substantial reason to believe, and that believing in the invisible transforms our life in such a positive way, in such a healing way, that it can be highly recommended to others to embrace it. Because if you see that materialism, due to the absence of values, is really a cause of diseases, a cause of deception, a cause of sadness, then automatically you become curious what option is there to cross beyond that. And therapy is like a proposal for a remedy. And Oida means to see or to search for the inner vision. Wheat comes from vision, but it's not the vision of the eyes. It is the vision of the soul. It is the awareness. Socrates said, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. So this is part of it's a Greek word, oida. It comes from Veda. It comes from Vedic vision. And the Vedic vision is to the Vedic wisdom. And the Vedic wisdom confirms that which enlightens us. Well, let us go step by step. Actually, this lecture is very long because so much has been said about the existence from the mental conceptions without any faith. And they have created a kind of a labyrinth of intellectual constructions mixed with scientific data, which in the end produces nothing but illusion and another type of faith. Faith in materialism or faith in spirituality, these are two options we have. That spirituality, of course, has to be a spirituality which is answering to the need of today, both individually as well as collectively. And that's, of course, an incredible proposal. Almost unimaginative. How is possible something can solve all our problems? When we cannot even solve the slightest problem, our mind is being disturbed. Okay, let's start. Number one, atheism is incoherent. Why? Because there's no known impulse or motivation without someone's consciousness. So we want to start observing and concluding that something is impersonal, mechanical, while the observing capacity is not a product of matter. Of course, here we go into the proposal by the way of faith in consciousness. But we have two things. Only consciousness can observe it, and only consciousness produces a development, an impulse, or a motivation. So considering a development like the universal development, without an impulse, without a consciousness, that is incoherent. That is the first one. So if atheism is incoherent, we should very carefully think about it before we just follow an incoherent proposal of life, which is giving nothing positive to even aspire for. Number two, whatever has brought about life may be called God or reason. So life is here. We are observing life. Life is some amazing manifestation. Just if we consider the wonderful options life gives, like composing beautiful music, painting incredible pictures, cooking delicious dishes, constructing beautiful dwellings. The life in the human array influence is amazing. The life without human influence is even much more amazing. We go into the molecular discoveries of life, the atom, the DNA and all that. It just blows your mind completely. and the beauty of it, the sequential process. So we can say that whatever brought life about to exist, call it what you call it, think of it what you may think of it, but that is called God. You don't know what it is, who it is, how he works, you don't know, it doesn't matter. You see life, and what brought about life is God. We call it God, we love it to be God. Now God may have many names. We may call him Bhagavan, we may call him Vishnu, we may call him Allah, we may call him Jehovah. That doesn't matter. That's not the issue here. The issue is that someone with his energy brought about what is life. And we give it another name here, which is a very delicate name. It's called reason. Reason also brings us to the point of reasonable. Reasonable means a functioning organism is reasonable. To create something which simply does not work, which simply ends up in self-destruction or something, it would not be very reasonable. So therefore, that which is the creative impulse of everything can be understood or can be called as the origin of reason. Of course, all these words, they are just stepping stones for clarifying certain types of descriptions, areas. Every word has definitely imperfections because they have been created by imperfect minds, unless there is something behind it, which we come later in a different point, called axiomatic truth. Axiomatic truth we will deal a little bit later. Number 3, reason is reality because effect has motion. That's a bit complicated. There's a reality that there's a reason, because the motion which we see, the world is moving, the plants are growing, they're moving, the elements are in transformation, they're moving, the astros are moving, you are moving, everything is moving. So by this moving, we can reason there must have been a cause. Every cause has an effect. And in this case, the effect is motion. So that motion must have reason. It is a bit intellectual here, but we are coming through the Oida therapy to a level where we kind of cover all the basic atheistic propositions, which kind of try to minimize all the phenomena into something like chaos. Chaotic, accidental, cosmic interactions. Something like that. That is much shorter and doesn't require any explanation because it seems unreasonable. It doesn't make any sense. So if there's no sense, why asking for reason or for sense? Number 4. There is a notion leading to motion. Notion is a state of consciousness. My notion is, I want to go to Mamgachi. my motion is I'll be going. Without first having a notion, there most likely will not be motion, emotion, commotion. It will not come. It all starts at the notion, and the notion requires conscious awareness. So therefore, to think that everything is moving without any notion, without any cause, that's a very, very abstract. Number 5. We have motion and we have the observation of motion. So here we got the whole world is moving and I'm contemplating it and I say, wow, look at the motion of this tree. This tree brought about this most wonderful papaya. That took quite a long time. The motion was not from one second to the other. But as I observed the motion of the papaya, I took the determination to go into motion and pick the papaya. So we observe a motion to create a notion, to again go into motion. So it has an interactiveness in all this, always under the observation or the power of consciousness. Number 6. The divine is causal, not casual. So, if something has been caused for a good purpose, for a beneficial purpose, then we call it divine. We would not call divine neither the casual nor the demoniac. Like some people say there's an anti-force, a negative force, and that's creating things. But that we would not call the divine. Rather, that is when people ignore the divine and start in their emotions giving trouble to others. That's another story we are not talking here about today. Divine is causal. Means there is an effect, there has been a cause, there has been a purpose. And that purpose we can also call a meaning of life. Because without a meaning, automatically we think everything's casual. There's no reason, it's just casually so. Don't worry about it. Don't take any type of action or think that you have to learn something. It's all casual. And if casually one kills the other, then what's the problem? It's casually. They're killing here, they're killing there. Sometimes I kill, sometimes I'll be killed. So casual, so what? Why bother about it? No need for schools and philosophical thoughts. Number 7. A supposedly casual event, something which happens, you think it's casual, you don't know why, that comes from something in motion. And therefore it has it had a cause. So therefore, if there has been a cause for the motion, it's not casual. So this is a way to eliminate the thinking of the casuality. Because as you observe it, there is motion which comes from it. So behind the motion was the notion. I hope you can follow me. These are all stepping stones for understanding Oida Traducción. Aquí estamos de vuelta. Okay. Number 8. You see motion and you are imagining casuality. That is what atheism is all about. They see motion everywhere and they think there's no reason behind it. There is no impulse, no direction. So it is something totally imaginary. You imagine something. It's not reasonable. Behind every motion is a notion. And then it will be accompanied by emotion. And most likely create commotion. But that's another subject. Number 9. Imagining is possible through motion, vision, and conjuring casual or causal impulses of the moving reality. So this is the same thing I explained before. The imagination is a possibility which comes through consciousness, and you observe the motion. You have visions and you're speculating. You may think there is a cause or there's no cause, but all of it is moving in reality. So what we really have to study is the reality. Too many philosophical things speculating about the origin is not really the most important or wisest things to do. But if you insist on doing it, come on, I take you on, my atheistic brother. Because you're just as a lovely guy or woman as myself by its cause, by its meaning. And if we come to talk about it very clearly, you will understand that my reasoning is love and wanting to share with you something very valuable which you are simply ignoring by giving too much value to your mental aberration, imagination. The interrelated elements exist and bring about actions either passive or active. So, imagining shows us that an image exists which can be observed. That means two separate interrelated elements exist and bring about action, either passive or active. So whatever we observe is about the interaction of different elements, and that again will bring about further activities. Contemplation is also an activity. If you simply observe something, you are also interacting with it. Like you see it, it impacts on your vision. It impacts on your memory. It goes into your memory bank. You cannot open your eyes and be inactive, because seeing, smelling, hearing is all physical activity. So even to that level of seeing something and then saying that something comes from nothing, that's incoherent. It doesn't make sense. It simply ignores great forces. The great forces behind everything. In the Bhagavad Gita it says that Krishna is the origin of everything. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it says all energies come from him and are controlled by him. Let us go to text number 11. A moving world has a reasonable cause of its movement. That cause we can call divine impulse. So, a moving world, there's movement, there's reason. What is that reason? We don't know. but there is reason, because it's moving, and therefore we can call this cause of movement divine or God. Again, here we may say defining or accepting some personal understanding of God with a certain feature. You may say, I don't believe it, and things like that. But that's not our discussion here. Our discussion is whether there is an impulse which brought about a movement. And if there is such an impulse, that impulse we call divine. And if you agree on that, we already got a form of God. It's called the form of impulse. It's the form of generating energy to manifest and generating energy to observe the manifested energy. Otherwise, the world without consciousness would be not interesting. We would have nothing to talk about. As a matter of fact, there would be no talking, no thinking, no feeling, no nothing. But we do have those things, so therefore we have to deal with this issue. I know this issue is not easy. For you to follow me on this, you have to be able and willing to questioning your established values and especially your interpretations of what you have seen. Because by reflecting in this way, you can discover something wonderful and positive, which those who are ignoring the divine, they are deprived of it. More about that later. Number 12. What is invisible to our senses moves by causes which are also invisible. Here we come to the point of limited senses. I don't hear everything, I don't see everything, I don't smell everything, I cannot touch everything. There's many things which come very noticeable from the invisible, and therefore I also do not know the cause, which is also invisible. So this comes into my mind, it rolls here, somebody pushes it to me. I don't know really what it comes from. I don't know what mind produced that metal or anything, or which man put it into the machine. It's here. Many things are invisible, but this is visible. So by reasoning I say, now I go and find the factory and find out how this came into existence. But this I can do on an object. But I cannot do it on the creation of life. That remains invisible. So we have to take in consideration the element of invisible reality. And if you accept invisible reality, then you have to also accept that your knowledge will be very limited about the invisible reality because it's invisible. You cannot touch it in any way. But you accept it exists. And this is where the atheism starts shaking. Because if there's something invisible which brings about your observable phenomena, which brings about your observing capacity, that means like, the best example is a father has a child, but he disappears. And maybe the woman in that day had sex with 10 men, so she really doesn't know the child in her womb from whom the semen came to produce it. So apparently there's no father for that child. But this is only apparently, because it's just invisible. You cannot, nowadays, if you know those 10 people, you can take the DNA from the 10 fathers and you could identify he was the father. Even the mother wouldn't know, but then she would know. But that's a scientific approach. Here we don't have to go that complicated because we simply know life is here. I'm observing the impact of life. Therefore, the invisible reality is, for me, very high and very elevated and very sacred. There we have to come in with the word sacred. Sacred means invisible, but very beneficial. Sacred is positive intention towards me and you and everyone. That is sacred. Sacred spaces for everybody to grow, to understand. Sacred space is not where I cheat you or you cheat me. That's not a sacred space. So therefore, the sacred is secret because it's invisible. But it is noticeable. So the sacred, secret, invisible world is worshipped by me in this Oida therapy for driving out the atheistic ideas from the mind, which means everything is useless, no meaning, no responsibility. Let's come to point number 13. Only through the mouth or other senses may we know that or what a person thinks. I don't know what you think unless you speak it out. I feel this, I like this. Then, through that, I'm gaining information. This is about the most ordinary transaction of two human beings or two animals. They talk to each other, they communicate. And that is the only way for me to go beyond the invisible aspect of your mind. I cannot put electrodes on your head to find out what you think or feel. So the mouth is here very crucial. And what an amazing mouth. It is said that the voice, the human voice, is the most sophisticated of all musical instruments. What the human voice can do, no flute can do, no piano can do, no organ, no trumpet can do. The human voice is absolutely surprising. Brings us to point number 14. Reasoning has to be exposed by reasonable word or action. That's very interesting. If there's any reason in anything, we have to see in a reasonable world some exposition, some action which shows it's good. Like, for example, you may have a recipe, but unless you cook it and I eat it, I can't really understand whether your recipe is good or not. A poison is a poison when you find out the poisonous effect, and the opposite, a non-poisonous food, is being understood by eating it after it has been expertly prepared. Reasoning that there's a sense in everything has to be exposed by a reasonable word or action. What is a reasonable word or action? Well, everything reasonable and beneficial. Because Vedavyas writes down the Vedas. Great reason, great benefit, great action. Those who are producing unreasonable words or actions, we don't have to waste time with them. That is not our interest to find out when people are just running around irrationally and unreasonable, doing things for their stupid mind. But if somebody is making something very valuable, beneficial for everybody, then we take notice of it and we say, oh, look what this person has invented. It is very, very... So the Creator has created a reasonable world. That is the point. We want to do away with the Creator, but there's a reasonable world. So how do you deal with that? How can you reduce a reasonable world to an unreasonable cause? This is an abstract, which I would rather say it is without any gratefulness and completely negative mentality. Number 15, functioning units of any kind reveal that they have a function conceived by its invisible conscious conception to obtain functionality and its purpose. It's a bit complicated. Let's try to simplify that. Functioning units are we, amongst many other functioning units. Functioning units of any kind reveal that they have a function conceived by its invisible conscious conception. For example, procreation. This semen and this egg, they have a function to fulfill. And that function fulfills when a new child is born. So then you can understand that there was a conception behind it, which is now obtained by its specific purpose. A child is born and it has proven its functionality. So such functioning units or manifestations of any kind reveal that this function was conceived by its invisible conscious conception. So here the element is invisible conscious conception. Does it exist? Of course it exists. How can you have a conscious impact and then there's no conscious invisible conception? Like you always ask somebody when they get married, where did you meet? How did you get the idea to marry each other? Because that was the invisible conscious conception which went before. Even in a case of a rape, the crime investigator will say, what happened? How did you dare to think that you can enjoy this woman? What is your consciousness to have a conception created by your raping? So, the invisible conscious conception is undeniable. If you want to deny that, you deny the mind, you deny the intelligence, you deny everything. And denying God is just as ridiculous as denying the invisible conscious conception. Number 16. The subtle invisible impulse of any functioning phenomena is evidence of a creative intelligence. The word creative intelligence is quite often used these days because creative intelligence refers that behind the creation is intelligence. And intelligent means a supreme being with a supreme intelligence, or anybody with intelligence. So the subtle invisible impulse, I repeat, the subtle, what you cannot see, invisible, you cannot see, impulse of any functioning phenomena, any being, any tree, any insect, is evidence of a creative intelligence. If you cannot accept this, you have not understood all the other points, which are totally based on logic and experience. This is not belief. We believe in belief, but here we are analyzing with our reasoning capacity to get out this foolish conception that life has no meaning. And because some people think life has no meaning, then they commit suicide, they go to drugs, they do so many things because they think there's no meaning. They fall into this trap of hopelessness, and hopelessness goes worse when they think, now I can harm others for my temporary business or temporary benefit, because there's no reason to not do so. Practically the basis of criminal thinking. 17. If I believe in a divine creative intelligence due to my observation of functioning units all around me, I simply conclude the obvious to my intelligence. In other words, here we are responding to our own intelligence, which is very interesting. We have an intelligence, and that intelligence is observing. It is observing that there is creative intelligence. Creative intelligence is that there is functioning phenomena. Is there subtle invisible impulses behind the functioning phenomena. Therefore, I deduct the existence of a divine creative intelligence as I observe the units which are functioning around me. And that is the investigation made by my intelligence. I have assumed the right with my intelligence to evaluate and to draw conclusions. If I say you have no right to draw any conclusions, then why God has given us this incredible mind, this incredible intelligence, this incredible phenomena of life? No. As a matter of fact, God enjoys our intelligence. He enjoys our creation. He enjoys our creative, artistic services we do. He enjoys the flower garland because it shows your love for Him. He enjoys the crowns we make for Him because they show our love for Him. Everything we do for Him, like this beautiful temple was constructed out of love for Him. And we wanted it to be looking so organic, 100% organic. Even the iron pillars which are in here, they're hidden behind bamboo, so that you will only see the organic beauty. So this is a devotional offering. There's absolutely no need for it. You're asking for need? That is another thing. Functioning units may apparently be out for need, but actually conception is not out of need. There is much more. It is the impulse of love. But that's another subject we will get later to. Number 18. If another person exercises his right not to accept my conclusion of a creative intelligence, we must honor our principle that the invisible may or not be believed in by another person. So here we go in Oida Therapy. We believe that everybody has a right to believe. So if somebody for some reason does not believe in a creative intelligence behind everything, then we also respect that. But we would ask him to follow the train of thought of our exposition here. to show him that it's a not very reasonable conclusion not to believe in a creative intelligence. But since we are talking about invisible subjects, it's just like if I talk about your mind, which is an invisible, and I say your mind is empty, you're useless, you must be dumb, so therefore you say nothing good. Then you say, wait a second, I'm a doctor, I invented healing, I'm doing good things. Your proposition, what you say, is definitely wrong. Then I can accept it. Okay, he shows me. But if I don't see what's in his mind, if I don't know anything, I could conclude wrong things about him. In other words, only somebody explain himself, then we can know about him. If that's a regulative principle for anyone understanding each other and communicating with each other, then what about the creative intelligence behind the existence? Do you think that creative intelligence has to come and give his credentials to you and prove his existence because just because you insist on? I remember one time a person in a class of mine, he says, can you prove me the existence of God? And I immediately told him, what makes you think that you deserve a proof of the existence of God? Do you think God is so cheap, he just has to go around and prove himself to every stupid guy speculating about him? Does he want to reveal himself? That's a different story. That's something we will reach later too. Now, we go to point number 19. DNA shows the information which at a given moment put bodily functions into motion. But in the absence of consciousness, that function ceases to continue. You cannot see the cause, but notice the effect or death. The origin of that DNA is life. That means life or consciousness is higher than matter. I hope you can follow me. So by DNA, we have a specific body. Very interesting. It works perfectly. From parents to children, the DNA gives certain information. So, bodily functions, they come into motion by the DNA. But when you die, when that consciousness goes out of your body, the DNA does nothing more. The DNA disintegrates and it just rots and goes into other type of circumstances. Or you get burnt, it becomes a little bit of ashes. So, this DNA and the information in the DNA is the proof of creative intelligence. Because somewhere, somehow, that information has to be stored in that DNA, which came into the father's seed, etc., to produce another existence. You cannot see it, and you don't need to see it. You just need to accept it, because immediately you see there is something higher than matter. DNA, a living DNA principle gives matter life. Without that life, the DNA has no more function. That means life is higher than the DNA. So this life, Collins, one of the great discoverers of the DNA, he said there's no better proof of the existence of God than the DNA. Because this information is very, very sophisticated. In your DNA, it even has the color of your eyes. It even has what type of intelligence you're going to have. Even the subtle things of your life are in the DNA. But coming from the consciousness in you. Because without the consciousness, there's nothing. Number 20. Consciousness is divine. Love is the highest state of self-denial. To favor another person, love for a conscious creative intelligence is the highest manifestation of self-denial to favor all others in some universal love spirit. Now comes the question, is this desirable? Answer. Or second question, does it exist? Third question, is it based on faith? So here again, consciousness is divine, love is the highest state of self-denial. You love somebody, you sacrifice yourself to favor another person. Love for a conscious creative intelligence, God, is the highest manifestation of self-denial. You may live a life of a monk, all your life dedicated to the welfare of others, not only one case, one charitable case, no, completely living to favor all others in some kind of universal love. So then the question is this desirable? Is this love good for the world, good for us? We have to come, because if loving a universal creative intelligence that produces self-denial for the sake of the well-being of others, I mean, the answer of this is clear, clear, clear. Yes, 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 it's very desirable. So this is a proof in action of the benefits of faith and love into the creative intelligence. Number 2, if everything comes from nothing, nothing would be God, and in the end would return to nothing, back to God. It's a joke. So if you say God is nothing and everything is nothing and the life comes from nothing, and when you end up in your end of your life again you return to nothing, well then you're back to God, because the creation of everything is what the cause of everything we call God. But nothing is simply a way to refer to what we cannot see. I say, if you have no intelligence, because I cannot see your intelligence. Now, if you prove your intelligence to me, then of course I will accept it. So, nothing only is a denial of something. It shows a certain degree of ignorance. But since this nothing produces the most amazing somethings, the devotees of God or nothing live in great goodness and expectation that they may be given entrance into the secrets of nothing material. This is very interesting here, the nothing material. Just like we, our consciousness is also nothing material, but full of potentials like faith and dedication. It's a bit complicated here, unless you really understand it intuitively. Nothing is a kind of a strange proposal. But if you say nothing material, then it is very good, very beneficial. Very beneficial. You have to understand that what is existing is supplying you. It's supplying you an amazing possibility. Just like you're a little child, now you can learn a job, you can also have your own family, you can have children, you can write a book, you can paint, you can do so many things. But all this is manifesting within the world of matter. Now say matter comes from nothing, then your creativeness is also nothing, and in the end everything returns to nothing. That is very fictional. In reality, we have to accept that consciousness is nothing material. Therefore, the goal of life is also not material. That is where materialism has to end. When you come to this point, your materialistic attitude has to end. It's 8:33. We will continue this class because it is lengthy, as I told you. I will just put you one more text, point number 23. The mind always moves into some direction. We cannot stop the mind. And our study of creative intelligence and of matter and spiritual consciousness, this also has to be studied through the mind. But the mind is very volatile. The mind is fluctuating. The mind may turn against us or in favor of us. Therefore, 24, if the mind came up with the idea of Big Bang, mind over matter, but consciousness is over the mind. So here's a very big point. The mind can produce the idea of Big Bang. But what is above Big Bang? The mind. And what is above the mind is consciousness. So why study Big Bang when you can study consciousness? It's like this glass has coconut milk. I can spill the coconut milk on something which spoils because of the liquid. And then I study what was spoiled by the coconut milk. And then I will conclude that coconut milk is bad. But this is stupid because coconut milk is great. And it is a gift of God. But you have to decide where you put your attention, how you do the study. So the same thing, Big Bang is what? It's creation of somebody's mind. They don't know what exploded, when it exploded, nothing. It's just like, wow, it looks like, could be. But that's okay. Maybe there's Big Bang, maybe there's no Big Bang. But what came up in your mind for the Big Bang is possible because of your consciousness. And your consciousness is much, much more interesting than a Big Bang. As a matter of fact, this Big Bang, if it ever happened, is an action of the past. Don't live in the past. Live in the present. Find out what to do. Be positive. Be constructive. I go to number 25. Mind is flickering. Intelligence depends on memory. Consciousness is independent of workings, of the working senses, like in dreams. In a dream, your senses are also active, but it all comes and goes like in a dream. So don't focus on the dream, focus on the consciousness. Focus on the soul. focus on the origin of your consciousness. But here I will stop now, because it is a gradual process of understanding why consciousness, why love, why we are actually sons and daughters of the supreme creative intelligence and supreme love. And we can embrace that. All our problems are solved. Then we can only, next question is how to serve Him, how to do something wonderful in this life, because whatever philosophy you follow, death is sure. And death will finish with all the rest. I hope you could follow me until here. Thank you so much for joining this class of Oida Therapy, which can help people to go beyond their own limitation and reach the world of consciousness, which is a gift of God.